What's up, everybody? Kevin here, and I'm back to do I'm going to call this a refresher on our Domination Station NFL product so that you get an idea of really how to use this the proper way. Obviously, a lot of people are new. Not a lot of people have used the tool, and actually a lot of people are getting a little too used to NBA and the real lack of needing to do all that much. That is not how NFL works. So I'm going to give a basic overview of how the Domination Station works and should be used for daily fantasy football. Now, one of the things I always say to start with, and I don't have this in front of me, but one of the things I always say to start with is people ask, what about a cash lineup? Well, that's why we come out with picks. You cannot straight trust the Domination Station where you click a button, although it could work, but where you just click a button and expect a cash lineup. And I'm going to show you just like how that works. We're on Fanduel where you don't have any crazy parameter. Actually, I must have set some parameters here because it was able to. Let's see. Let me reset settings. All right, every time you start off, all right, let's start here because this is going to be a bit of a tutorial. Every time you start off using the Domination Station, ideally clear your cache and always reset settings. Okay, so we start there. Now, if I click here, it's not going to let me click because I have to make two decisions. So let's get started. What I like to do is go position by position, take a look at who's available. So here you can see this is from the wildcard round, still what's loaded in the Dom Station. You see all the quarterbacks and all of the different positions. Here we go. Running back, wide receiver, tight end, defense, etc., etc. So the first thing I like to do is I like to go through each position group and pull out any players that I'm just straight up not interested in using this week. So, there's a few different ways of doing that, but you can unclick them. You can use this slider to pull out, kind of the lowest of the low projections. You don't want to do too much because it'll pull out all the defenses, which are generally projected fairly low. So I don't actually normally use this. I go position by position and I try to figure out, all right, which of these players am I willing to use this week? At quarterback on a short slate, I'm pretty much open to just about everybody. Running back, wide receiver, etc., etc. So you start pulling out names of players you really don't plan to use. Now, if I'm making a cash lineup, I'm pulling out all the names of players I don't consider cash viable. But that's part of the advice that we give. That's part of the Geeks Pick sheets. That's part of Marley's sheets where he talks about cash plays. You have to pay attention to that. NFL is not just point and click. All right. Now, some of the exciting options. So, all right, let's start. You have to make two decisions. So let's say we already know what happens. So let's say I like Derrick Henry. He's a good value this week. Kind of want him to show up in some lineups. And I like, Todd Gurley. He's the best guy on the slate. So I'm going to set a couple lineups. All right. Here's what these things do. Optimal mode is generally for generating cash lineups or your top optimized lineups. Don't mess with that. I will show you what to do when you want to mess with that, but don't do it yet. Fantasy points is how we sort. It stays the same. Number of uniques per lineup. This is something that people get confused about. Uniques per lineup is a setting to create diversification over a large number of lineups. So if I'm making 3 lineups and I have 3 uniques, that means each lineup will have at least 3 players that the other one didn't. It creates extra diversification, right? And here's a very important setting. This is the number of players against your defense. And normally on a normal week with a lot of games, we don't mess with this. We put 0, pretty much assuming that if our defense is doing really well, we don't really want to target too many offensive players going against them. In a short slate week, you can actually set this 2, 3. I think it's actually irrelevant. So defense is going to score in a lot of different ways, and you can't really afford to assume that you can't play anyone against whatever defense you chose. So put a number 1, 2, or 3 there. All right, the initial optimized lineup. So I hit optimize. Okay, I have my couple of likes in there, and here's what popped up. Okay. Interestingly, there's actually some connectivity here in this lineup. You see Alex Smith and Travis Kelce show up, Todd Gurley, a couple of stud running backs, and then it went cheap with the wide receivers, blah, blah, blah. Cheap defense. Okay, fine. Right? Okay. Notice how it didn't use my like of Derrick Henry. The reason that happened is because when you click like, what's actually happening is it's increasing the player's projection. Each one of these increases, as you can see here, by 5, 10, or 15% total. So whereas our Army baseline projection was 14.4, your actual projection becomes 15.1, or if you click a door, it becomes 16.5. So as this number goes up, you'll see that the points per dollar goes up. But you'll notice even within the door on Derrick Henry, this particular week, because of the way projections worked out, Fournette showed up as an even better value, even without that, and Gurley as well. Gurley certainly didn't hurt that I gave him the like. Now, click it again with the love on there. Even there, you see that Henry doesn't show up. Now, you might say, well, I really want to play Henry. Okay. Change the projection. You can manually change it to whatever you want. The power of the Domination station and your ability to customize is unlimited, as I will get to in a moment. So this is your basic. Even jacking him up. Look at that. All right, let's try 18. Let's try that. Let's see if we can get some Derrick Henry. There he is. Okay, so now he's showing up in your flag. Maybe he showed up before and I didn't notice it. All right. Extra features. One of the features you could do is set up so that the flex position will not include any one of these positions. You can choose to eliminate one of them if you want. Okay. I'm not saying you have to. Each slate is unique. Sometimes we don't really want a tight end over there. Sometimes I don't want a running back. It depends on the slate. All right, now to the exciting stuff. Really where the magic happens. Okay, rules. So here's the magic of the Domination station and your ability to do a lot of cool stuff. You can actually stack by position or by player name, and I happen to love the player name stack. The reason being you can get really detailed. All right, so let's start with, I always start stacks with a quarterback. Now, the idea is to build correlated lineups so that if one thing is going well, multiple things are going well in your lineup. That is how you win tournaments. Can't stress that enough. That's how you win the tournament. That's what the pros do. That's what we teach. That's what you should be doing. So you have to think of every quarterback and what are the scenarios in which they will be successful. All right, Marcus Mariota, stack with no less than, I'm going to choose player names. One of, and then we'll choose his wide receivers. Decker, Corey Davis, right? Delaney Walker. And the assumption is if Mariota's having a good game, he's probably doing it with one of these three. Now, there's also a really cool feature you could do. No more than exactly 0 players of. So you can actually do a negative stack. Now, let's say, and this wouldn't have worked this past week, but let's say in general that we say, I don't want Mariota and Henry in the same lineup together. If his running back's beasting, then the quarterback's probably not doing well. So I can actually stack Mariota with exactly 0 of Derrick Henry. Now, one of the things I said this week was actually with Alex Smith that whenever Kareem Hunt does really well, Alex Smith does shit. So let's set it up so that it will stack Alex Smith with exactly 0 of Kareem Hunt. We're going through each position. All right, who do we want to actually include Smith with? Well, we like we like Hill. We go no less than. You can actually more than, no more than, no less than, exactly. You can set it exactly how you want. Some people like the double stack. No less than 2 players of, and we'd go Hill, Kelce, Wilson, right? No less than 2. So this is called the double stack, where we're going to pair up a quarterback with 2 of his pass catchers. They can be tight ends, they can be wide receivers, they can be whatever you want. Now I'm going to get even freakier with it, and I'm going to show you how you do the triple stack with the comeback. What that means is we want to game stack it. So let's say I got, I can't remember last week's games. All right, so we had KC versus Tennessee last week. So Smith was going up against Mariota. So what if I said all right, we've got Smith's players in here. Now we're going to stack QB Swift with no less than one of. Now we're going to look at some of the players from the other team. Now you might say, why do I care about this? Why would I want to do that? This is a game stack. The idea being, let's say with a Derrick Henry, we saw it happen already, that in the event that the Titans are scoring a lot and having a big game, Smith is going to have to play catch up or at least hang with them, therefore throw more, therefore score more fantasy points. So there is a proven method in lineup construction around game stacks. You can set that up. Now, I don't like to set it up exclusively because if you're going to run 150, then it would set up every Alex Smith lineup in a game stack. And we don't really want to do that on a short slate, but you could certainly do a few that way. Set up and do like 10. So run it once, do like a few of these. Now, here's what's going to be wild and an important thing to note. Just because you set up stacks doesn't mean that it's going to use those players. You still have to set your exposure. So let me do one more stack with Breeze, no less than one of, and we'll go Kamara because he's a pass catcher. We're going to go with Mike Thomas. And let's go Hill because we already know that Josh Hill beasted last week. Should have done that shit. Totally didn't use him. Anyway, now we've got a bunch of stacks set up. Let's run some lineups. Okay? Boom. Let's see what these look like. All right, we got Alex Smith. Now, every Alex Smith lineup should be a double stack. Let's check if it is. Smith, Decker, Wilson, Kelsey, Henry. Game stack. Right there. Smith, Hill, Wilson, Henry. Game stack. Boom. Smith, Davis, game stack, Wilson, Kelsey. Henry, even bigger game stack. This is how it's designed to be set up. Now, the final important ingredient that everybody gets confused about. Exposures, min and max, and tournament mode. How much time do I have left? 3 minutes. Damn. All right. The way tournament mode, let's say I have Todd Gurley in here and I have Derrick Henry in there, and they're showing up all over the place together. I'm going to set this at 40%. We're going to set Henry at 55%. What that's going to do is force Gurley into only 40% of the lineups, but as you'll see in this exposures bar, when I click this button, I want to show the difference. Once we get into tournament mode, actually I'm going to run it first in regular mode, and you'll see. In optimal mode, it will show Gurley for the first 40% of lineups, and Henry for the first 50%. He will be in all of them together, and then they'll stop. So let's watch it. RB. Here he is. Oh, it's a... I didn't get here fast enough. Let's try it again. If you notice here, it stopped putting Henry and Gurley in lineup. So they basically showed up in the first... All right, let me do a little more so that we can actually get a look at this. And you can see it happen. Okay. You see they're 100% now, all three of them. And watch, it's going to stop in a second. And Gurley, just nothing now. It's stuck at 40. It stopped there. Same thing with Henry. He stops at 56. No new lineups. That's how it works in optimal mode. They're going to show up together in the first however X percentage of lineups they're allowed to be in because they're the highest projected players. So that was a problem for me because I wanted them spread out. So here's the solution. Tournament mode. Now watch how it's evenly distributed the whole time. Notice Henry stays at 55. Gurley stays right at around 40% the whole time. So as each lineup is being generated, it's making sure that Henry's in about 55% of them and Gurley's in about 40% of them, but it's evenly distributing them across the spectrum of lineups. So that is tournament mode. So you're going to set, when you set max settings, that's what you do. Minimum exposure, similar situation. It's going to force that player into that number of lineups. A minimum. So if you want to get exposure, you want to make sure I have exposure to all these different players, you use the minimum exposure setting. That's it for now. I hope this helps. That's my 15 minutes of time.